So, hello everyone, and welcome to Retention Chronicles. Today we are joined by Sergio. I am so excited to have you here today. We are also joined by Yaw, our beloved co-founder and CEO here at Malomo. And so, I would love, Sergio, for you to say hi. Tell us a little bit about your background, your brand, all that good jazz.
So first of all, thank you for having me. Hi to both of you. My name is Sergio Tache, and I'm the founder and CEO of Dossier, a perfume company that we started working on in 2018. A little bit about my background. In a previous lifetime, I used to work for investment banking, and which was well in a ton, but I wasn't exactly feeling 100% fulfilled. So then I transited to the e-commerce world, especially in the beauty sector. And I started doing that by starting a company in the hair and beauty space,
Mm.
which was an interesting transition going from investment banking to selling hair online.
Yeah.
Definitely raised some eyebrows on my parents' side, like, wait, so you had this nice job in a suit and now you're selling hair on the internet. Can you explain that to me a little bit? So that was definitely an interesting transition. But that company did well. It was self-funded. It did well. And then, and definitely enjoy what I was doing and decided to stay in the e-commerce and beauty space. And that's how we got to Dossier. And I've been working on Dossier since 2018, and we launched in 2019.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I would love to kind of know more about your background in investment banking. Yao and I both have backgrounds like formal education in science. And so like I think Yao, you'd probably agree that like maybe there was like, oh, some raised eyebrows, like you're going into e-commerce, but I feel like everyone kind of finds their way into e-commerce somehow, like right? Everyone has a background. So what like learnings like do you think have transferred over from that background? Because I feel like also investment banking is very formalized, which if
Mhm.
that is not true, let me know, but I've never been in the industry. But e-commerce is kind of the opposite of that, at least in my perception.
I think you gain a huge amount of work ethic in investment banking. It's
Mm.
really, really long hours, especially on what we call the private side. I was doing a lot of M&A deals. Uh, Coming home before 11 p.m. at night did not happen often. So the work ethic you get, the rigorous analysis training that you get, can be helpful in any industry at all. So I'll be always be grateful for that because I definitely learned a lot by doing that job. It was not an easy job. Getting stuff delivered on time, no matter what the cost is to your personal health.
Mm.
It's got pros and cons, but it definitely taught me a lot in terms of work ethic. Obviously you do a lot of analysis and you have to be very rigorous with your presentations and the numbers you show and go through. So I think that's pretty transferable to any industry, and not just e-commerce. Um, yeah, that's what I have to say.
I'm curious too. So you kind of like you're like moving into selling hair online. It's a very different career trajectory. How did you even like get into that business?
Like a lot of things in life, a little bit of coincidence, a little bit of luck, a lot of discussions with other people. So the way it specifically happened for me was one of my good friends back in the day had and still has a successful online lingerie company called Adore Me. And he was praising the virtues of entrepreneurship for a long, long time. Like, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think it's for me. And finally, I pulled the trigger and decided to transit. And he, we brainstormed in terms of the idea, and he acted as my mentor. I was
Mm.
running the day-to-day business, and he was acting as my mentor. And that's, I mean, I could have not have hoped for a better introduction to the entrepreneurship world than having somebody who can really help you learn the ropes and avoid the countless mistakes you can make when you start a company. So that was crucial. I think that was a really, really important factor in my success in this industry. And if I can recommend to anybody who's starting as an entrepreneur, I think the number one advice I would give is get somebody in the industry you're going into to mentor you, at least guide you, because those pieces of advice are invaluable.
Yeah, I love that. I was going to ask you
Oh,
about
there
what
you
you would say to someone, so I'm glad you answered that question. I think that's awesome. I'm familiar with the Adore Me brand as
Oh
well,
yeah.
so I mean, I can only imagine the influence of having a mentor. Yao, I want to ask you as well. Would you say, I know like our background in Malomo is that Yao and our other co-founder Anthony started as a consultancy, so they were helping other brands and like saw the issue in the post-purchase space that they were able to thus solve with Malomo. So yeah, would you also attribute kind of like with mentorship being able to have maybe like a leg up or um have that, evade some common mistakes in like founding your own
Yeah.
company?
Yeah, and actually, like Sergio, it's very cool to hear your background. I had a similar journey. Started my career in investment banking as well,
go. Oh, there you go.
and transitioning into kind of the software space and then the e-commerce space. Like you don't know what you don't know, and so like you really need people to help you see around corners and understand like the problems that you can't anticipate running into. Um, so our core value, one of our core values is leverage other viewpoints, and it's been pretty impactful to us because I think like a lot of times like you can get when you're working a problem, you can get tunnel vision. And a lot of times I think when you go out and seek other perspectives and advice from people, they help you unlock really quickly on those problems that you've been dealing with. And so mentorship is insanely important. Like I mean, we've
Yeah.
got a board of directors in our company. I've got personal advisors. I'm part of CEO groups. Like all of those perspectives help you just understand like what is important for you to focus on and what is not important for you to focus on.
Yeah, that resonates with me a lot because I think you learn so much by talking with other people. And, obviously more senior people, that's great, but also even more junior people. You can always gain something and you never know where the next great piece of advice for your life, or for your career is going to come from. And it's all about listening and integrating that and say, okay, that makes sense for me. That maybe makes a little less sense for me. But I think it's tremendously important to go through that process. I
Yes.
always say I think I've been very lucky in my life, but I also think that to some extent I've created my own luck, and you create that luck through the conversations you have, the opportunities you see, and seizing those opportunities. I'm a firm believer in what you just said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. And so how did you take those learnings to then found Dossier? I know you said it was in 2018, I believe, and then launched in
Yes.
2019. So
Yeah.
can you walk us kind of through that whole process of like getting into the fragrance world? Yeah, and like founding Dossier.
Yeah. I've always been fascinated from the beginning by the margins in the beauty and fashion industry.
Mm,
I just find it crazy. From the get-go, I just find it particularly interesting and a bit insane. So my whole career in e-commerce has been geared towards how can we create more value for the customer? How can we create equally good or even better product by just selling it for less and just giving more back to the customer as opposed to having 80, 90, 95% gross margins, which don't make sense to me. That's how we started in the hair care industry, which was a niche industry, but the margins were particularly egregious. I also had a skincare company that took off, but not as much as I wanted to. And that's really what drove me towards the perfume industry. Uh, and the dossier started as a conversation between myself and the person who ultimately became my first investor,
mm,
just exchanging ideas. Uh, Again, going back to listening to other people and getting ideas from other people. And we both knew the margins in the perfume world were high. I didn't realize how high they were until I talked to that person. But also, what I didn't realize is there was no trademark on perfume. So that's where the idea of Dossier started, fermenting in my head, and that's how Dossier really started. And we're not the first ones to throw the idea. There's a whole bunch of micro companies that are out there. There's a whole cottage industry around this concept. And if you are from New York City, you'll be very familiar with a street called Canal Street. So all you have to do is go there to understand that there's a whole cottage industry around this concept, among other things on that street. Um, But we want to take a completely different approach. We want to create a great product. So typically these small companies tend to be very focused on price, not necessarily on quality. They tend to manufacture the perfumes in countries that don't really have a manufacturing expertise in perfume. Again, very focused on trying to sell for the lowest price possible. And we want to take an opposite approach. Our first desire was to create a great product. So we manufacture in France, in the southern part of France, in this village called Grasse, which is really the mecca of perfumery. We were very focused on the quality of our product. It didn't matter how much it cost us to make that product. We just wanted to create a great perfume. It helps that it doesn't cost a lot of money to create great perfume. So obviously we can still sell for a great price without killing our margins. We also wanted to remove some of the nasty ingredients that traditional perfumery had and sometimes still has in the perfume. So that was important to us too. But overall, the overarching idea was, how can we create a great perfume and sell it for a much more affordable price than what traditional perfumery sells at prices for? So our product started at $29, and you'll be hard pressed to if you go to Sephora to find a perfume that's going to smell great. It's going to cost you less than 80 or $100. It's going to be very, very hard for you. And if you go into the great niche brands like Tom Ford, Creed, etc., they sell the perfumes at $250, $300 plus, which is, I mean, great products, but insane margins when you think of it. And so we want to make great perfumery accessible for the 99%. That was important to us.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Maria.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
So like when you were launching the business, so like, did you have like a defined target market that you were like, I mean, the other 99% of folks that want accessible perfume is still a very large kind of broad audience. Like, did you go any more niche than that? Like when you're starting the business and going to market?
I think in the very beginning of the process, you just think about the product. I think you identify an opportunity and you say to yourself, okay, this does not make any sense. We can produce great perfumes that are inspired by luxury scents and sell them for way less. So we started with that. And then we really focused on the quality and the production to produce our first batch that would be of good quality. And then obviously in the meanwhile, but that's where we start. But obviously in the meanwhile, start thinking, okay, how can we market this? And you have some assumptions, some hypotheses, and you test them, and then you realize some of them are correct, some of them are incorrect. So for example, we knew that selling perfume online is not the easiest business in the world by definition, because you cannot smell anything on the internet. It sounds silly to say, but
it's true.
It's kind of an issue. So how do we market this in the beginning, and who are the people who are going to be the most susceptible to buy perfume online? So quickly we said to ourselves, I think our best initial target are going to be people who discover beauty online, are comfortable buying beauty products online, are comfortable buying perfume online. So the demographic is probably going to be, your 20 to 35-year-old, 20 to 40-year-old person. And we also had a strong hypothesis that these kind of people discover beauty not in the traditional media, but online, and especially on YouTube. So we have a strong bias towards YouTube, which we feel is a criminally underutilized platform for any beauty company. So that was our initial hypothesis, and it turned out to be true. Our other hypothesis was, well, in the US, traditionally, men don't use perfume or cologne as much as women. So our initial collection was very geared towards women. So we started off with 20 perfumes, and 15 of those were female and 5 of those were male. Turns out that was wrong. There was actually some strong interest from men to try perfumes. So we very quickly, when we increased that category, we really tried to rebalance that. So right now, we have about 85 perfumes, and 1/3 is female, 1/3 is male, and 1/3 is unisex. Unisex is also a huge developing category within the perfume industry.
I have I have like a
Go
million
ahead.
questions.
I saw it
Shoot
coming. I was
away.
like,
Yeah.
I
Okay,
saw
so
it.
so I love so perfume. This is like the one thing I was like really excited to ask you about. So like growing up, I have like these vivid memories of like going to the department stores around the Christmas time. That was like usually when I bought my cologne, particularly because it was on sale. And you the human aspect of like buying cologne or perfume is like you said, you got to go and smell it. You spray it on the sticks, right? And you waft it in your nose. And when you find that particular scent that you like you're almost like irrationally brand loyal. This it's
Yeah.
maybe personal perspective. Maybe it's very different for a lot of people, but so I'd always buy Davidoff Cool Water.
Which one
And
was that?
so
Sorry.
Davidoff Cool
Yeah.
Water,
Yeah.
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 Um, and so like whenever I wasn't at the mall and I needed to pick it up, like at CVS, like they don't let you spray. So like mentally, I'm just like, I know I love this scent, so I'm just gonna always stick to that scent unless I can try a different one. Um, I feel like I know the answer to this, but I'd love to hear like how did you get around that from an online perspective? Like how did you make that connection? Like you because you're not shipping out samples for people to like smell before they buy, like try before they buy it all, are you?
No, we're not.
Okay.
Absolutely. And that's something we thought about a lot. So there's two questions there that really resonate with me. One is your buying experience, and you knew you liked that perfume, and you're right. There's something almost irrational and magic about when you smell a perfume that you like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yes.
It's like a magical
It's
experience
like
almost.
euphoria. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah,
oh my
Yeah,
God,
exactly.
yeah.
yay.
Yeah, this is it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then,
Yes.
then your decision process becomes very easy because one, these perfumes tend to cost a lot of money, and two, you like that perfume. So why would you change?
Hmm.
So for a long, long time, people had this concept of signature scent. This is my scent. This is who I am. And little by little, people, especially in the younger generation, tend to shy away from that. They want to discover other perfumes. They
Mm,
want to smell the stuff. They want to have different perfumes for different occasions. You're not going to wear the same perfume at work versus going out with your friends. You want to have that portfolio and diversification. And it's kind of hard to do. The discovery process is difficult when your average great quality perfume costs $150 plus. You go to Sephora, you want to buy three perfumes, all of a sudden you have a $500 bill. You know, not everybody can afford that. Some lucky few people can, but most people can't. So I think that's one of the key elements of the success of Dossier is that we enable that discovery process. You buy a bottle that costs $29. It's not going to break the bank for you. And you can try several perfumes. And actually, people buy on average between 2 and 3 products because they
mm,
want to go through that discovery process. And then linked to that, obviously, is, as I'm sure you know, we have an incredibly easy return process. So going back to your sampling question, which I think is a crucial one, one of the first questions we asked ourselves is, how can we make sure people want to buy our products? How can we incentivize them? So initially, we thought a lot around the sampling, and traditionally, perfume companies online have what they call a sample set. They can buy for, call it $20,
Hmm.
and you get what, 3, 5, 10 samples, small samples. You can try the different perfumes, and then you can use you get a $20 coupon to come back and purchase the final, the quote unquote real product. So the 50 ml bottle, the 100 ml bottle. Um, and that would make sense for a company that sells perfume for a lot of money because you're not going to fork out that amount of money. You're going to, on a whim, not going to pay $150 online for perfume you never smelled. For us, this is going more into, I guess, financial strategy. But for us, it didn't make sense to sell a a sample set of 20, $30 when the perfume itself costs $29. That delta wasn't worth it for us and just brings complications to the process. So what we decided to do is initially was to say, look, you're gonna buy the final product. You're gonna buy the 50 ml bottle. Inside there's gonna be a small sample. Try the sample on. If you like that sample, then you can use the bottle and you can use the perfume, etc., etc. So that's the initial way we got through that hump. That way people can feel reassured. Okay, the return process is very easy. I have a sample I can try. If I don't like it, I just send it back. No questions asked. Great. And then what we realized is a couple of things. One, the return process, getting that product back if they don't like it, was not as easy as we thought for us, because we have to refurbish the product. We have to put another sample in there. The insert card will be busted up. The box will be broken, whatever. Number two, that little sample bottle was made of plastic, which we try to shy away from as much as we can. So then we went back to the drawing board, saying, okay, what can we do? And then we just thought about it. It's like, why not just, we're confident in our product. We know it's great quality. We're just going to send it. You know what? Just buy the product. We'll just send it to you. Try it on as much as you want. If you don't like it, return it to us. No questions asked. Whether it's open or not, whether you use half of it or not, doesn't matter. Just return it to us. And it made our lives much simpler. It made the customers even more reassured that we believe in our product. And also we said to them, look, these bottles, we're not going to trash them. Doesn't make sense. We're going to gift them to charities. And I think that resonated too with the customer. So we made it, the selling process is frictionless. The return process is frictionless, and we do, in our modest way, some good to the world.
That's awesome. I love that so much. I did see the easy returns process on your guys' website, and I think that makes a lot of sense when I'm thinking about buying something online, especially like perfume. And I love that you touched upon I totally fall into that market where I want to have a bunch of perfumes. I have at least 8 right now that I just cycle through. But then my mom, she's like you, yeah, where she I think, I don't even know how old she was, but found her scent and that's it.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was
And
it.
she was like, I've never looked back. But me, I'm oh, and even it's funny because she'll buy me perfumes and she's like, I think you'd love this. But I'm like, why wouldn't you try it yourself? So it's a whole thing. But I totally think that getting over and having that reassurance that you said to the customer of we're so confident in our product, we think that you'll love it. But if you don't, no,
It's okay.
there's no issue. Just send it back and we'll give
Yeah.
it to charity. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's superpower. Lowers the barrier to entry to that. I think everybody's in this mindset of man, I don't know if I should buy from this brand I just discovered. I don't know, especially in the products that you sell, if I'm really gonna love this thing. I think that's super powerful messaging. Just very frictionless to try things.
Yeah. And look, you have to, because like we said initially, you can't smell perfume online. So you got to make sure that it's as frictionless as possible and risk-free as possible for the end consumer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that resonates a lot with us also, making something frictionless. I know that's as a company, a goal of ours, that's where our background is. So that I think that either from a consumer point of view or just a brand point of view is it helps all parties involved,
How so then you mentioned okay, target audience is they're beauty, so they discover beauty products on video platforms like YouTube. Has been a really great channel for you all. How do you leverage video and YouTube in your marketing to acquire customers?
So we're strong believers in influencer marketing, and I at least have been doing influencer marketing for a long time, even before it was a fancy term, even before the term influencer marketing did not even exist when we started doing that. And we're also big believers in the video format. Just to give you an example, imagine a Instagram post with an influencer holding a bottle like this or whatever, with very little explanation. That doesn't do justice to our product. Is she trying to push or promote the clothing, the bottle, the makeup? It's very unclear. Whereas in a video format, you have the time to tell a story and you have time to explain the product. And video is an extremely powerful tool. So that's why we strongly believe in video, whether it's YouTube and now TikTok, and to some extent, Instagram stories. We have a strong bias towards that. So we will work with influencers on those platforms first because they can tell that story. And to give you a sense, I think last year, I think there was about 15,000 pieces of content that talked about Dossier in some form or fashion. So when I say we're believers in influencer marketing, we really are believers in influencer marketing.
Yes.
And we work a lot with influencers on the small to medium size. We don't necessarily work with really large influencers. That's something we're working towards little by little. Sorry, I forgot the initial question.
Like how do you, yeah, I mean, you actually answered a lot of it, but how do you leverage YouTube and video to like really, yeah, in your marketing and drive people to action? Because I feel like the perfume industry in general has used that tactic for decades, right? Like Chanel and Dior, right? Whenever you're watching a commercial about a fragrance, it's not really about the fragrance, it's just like mini like soap opera is the story that they're telling that like evokes this like feeling or experience. I'm almost wondering, like, is there a new age version of that you all are doing too, that like inspires people to action? And it, like, I'm curious, like, why do you think video works for you, and like, what are you doing that you think is working?
So I think this goes beyond what you just asked. I think it's a super interesting question, and it goes beyond just the influencer marketing part. Just to finish on the influencer marketing side, the way we work with them is that there are some key messages that we want to get across, and we will be very specific about that. But how they get those key messages across depends on them. They're creators, they know their audience. If you try and script them too much, it's going to feel scripted and it's not going to work. It needs to be their voice transmitting these 3 key points, whatever those key points are. And we're firm believers in that. And we work with a variety of influencers. We're not very specific in terms of, okay, it needs to be this kind of niche, this kind of atmosphere. No, everybody likes perfume, or at least a lot of people like perfume. We're very comfortable working with a large variety of influencers. Now, going back to what you just said, which is super interesting, what kind of message we're trying to convey, and that's something we thought about from the get-go. We always felt that luxury perfumery was this very aspirational, inaccessible industry where it's all about aspiration. You know, the typical Dolce & Gabbana ad is like some super musty guy with a half-naked woman on a beautiful beach somewhere, and Dolce & Gabbana.
Conveniently, they have a bottle of perfume on the beach. Yeah,
exactly, because everybody does that. So that we want to be the opposite of that. And by the way, don't get me wrong, these are fantastic brands. We're nobody's compared to the Chanel's and Dolce & Gabbanas of the world. They're extraordinary brands, but we wanted to not be that. We wanted to be a much more warm, accessible brand. There's a big component of education in everything we try to do. So just to give you an example, if you look at the names of our products, it's not like, I don't know, Smoke in the Night or whatever crazy name they come up with. It's all about the ingredients, floral marshmallow, got it. Every single name is constructed with the olfactive family and then the main ingredient, that perfume. And it goes again to that educational and discovery process. For the longest time before I started in this industry, I had no idea about the ingredients or the notes that went into perfume. Now I realize actually I like a touch of ginger in my perfumes. It sounds silly, but I didn't know that before. So we try to really develop that educational aspect to things. And what we want when you buy a perfume from Dossier is that I want you to feel empowered, educated, and feel like you made a smart decision. And if you made a smart decision, that's great. And if you didn't buy, at least you feel empowered and educated. That's something that's important to us. You get to understand the industry better, and you make a choice that works for you with that education. And like everything, we're not there yet. It's still work in progress, but that's really something that drives us. The communication on website, on social media, etc.
Yes. So one interesting thing that like you touched on there, the education piece. So when I was visiting your website too, this is subtle, and I'm curious to hear like the I don't know, maybe the rationale behind it. But like with each fragrance, you had a little like byline underneath that's inspired by like cool water, inspired by popular scent or fragrance, which I think is like super smart because it instantly connects in the buyer's mind what I have an understanding of to what this new thing is. And like I think that's a very powerful but subtle like educational tool in a very small moment of time. What like has that been key to your strategy? Like kind of pairing,
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. It's been very important for us for many aspects. So we're not shy about the fact that our products are inspired by luxury scents, and they will smell very close to what the original scent smells like, and that's something we're proud of, and we communicate around, because again, we want to give the opportunity to the 99% and everybody really to have access to great perfumes. So that's something we communicate around. It's been, I think, very effective for us. So we don't bombard our website about this, but we definitely mention it because I think it helps the consumer understand what kind of product we're selling, and helps guide that decision, that purchase process. So yeah, it's been important for us both on the website in terms of communication. It helps frame the purchase decision.
Yeah, I love that you like take that ownership and like you're proud to be associating or proud to have your own space, right? I think that's so cool that you're able to carve out like we know that there are luxury products out there, but like that's not us, right? And like it goes back to what we were saying about the Dolce and Gabbana, like on the beach, right? Like they do their thing and it's amazing, right? We're talking about it right now, but to be able to then like pivot and really make your own brand, that's what stands out to me. So I love that you said like was it empower education and then like being confident about the decision,
Make a
the
smart
buying
decision.
decision.
Like you feel like you made a smart decision
Okay,
by
yeah.
purchasing.
Yeah, sweet.
And,
So
it's a little bit like to give you an example, great brand, at least I love, is The Ordinary. Same thing. You when you buy something from The Ordinary, you think, okay, I've made a great decision. I'm well educated. I understand the ingredients that I actually need for my skin to look great, and I don't have to pay $100 for it. Great.
a win-win-win.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. I would love to dive into, so like I know you also were talking about like working with micro influencers, right? So on the smaller to medium size scale, and like UGC and just like marketing strategy, retention as a whole. So we talked a little bit about video already, but I'd be curious to hear, so when you're trying to educate your customers, we've talked about like before buying. So are there any other like strategies that you employ before I would love to like go into after buying, like how you're making sure, your customers know everything that they need to know about your product. But before we pivot to kind of like the post-purchase side of things, are there any other things that you're doing on the pre-purchase side, like branding or anything in like the checkout process that you think would be like great to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a thousand things we try and test and we learn from. So there's the whole UX process of, okay, let's try this, let's try that. And a lot of them fail, some work, and that's great, and we implement them. But on a higher level, the two things I would flag there is I've always been a big believer in simplicity. So our website, my impression is that it's a pretty simple website to navigate. You very quickly get to the product. You very quickly get to where you need to get. And that's something I've always firmly believed in. I always think, okay, homepage, category page, product page, add to cart, checkout, done. No fluff in the middle. So it
Mhm.
needs to be very straightforward. I'm a firm believer in that. Number two, I'm also a believer in capturing emails and SMSs really far up the process because, I mean, when you think of it, you get 100 people that come on your website. You're lucky if you get 3 or 4 people to buy.
Right.
And then 96, 97 people, they're gone. That's it. So how can you capture some of their information to continue that conversation is super, super important to me. So that's something I focus on a lot because it helps us continue that conversation and push them towards that first purchase.
Right. Are you doing that through like pop-ups or like
Yeah,
giveaways?
traditional
Yeah.
method. You know, I'm also from believing do basic things well. So pop-ups are great. And obviously we capture the email and the phone number through those pop-ups. That's really our main source of email and SMS acquisition. There's a floating button at the bottom that helps too quite a bit.
Okay, sweet. So with that, then I think there's still like there's tons of opportunity in the post-purchase side to do that as
Agreed.
well. So can you walk us through kind of like your whole strategy after a customer buys from you? What kind of communication, what
Mhm.
education is the customer or the consumer getting?
Yeah. So our communication, at least through email SMS, are based on two things. There's what we call flows and campaigns. So flows very traditional. We have some post purchase flows that we like to push in terms of what you're going to expect, where your product is, has it been delivered, all very classic. And then down the road, after 15 days, or I think it's 15 days, we will send you an email to say, hey, by the way, do you want to post a review of your experience? What do you think of your product? And then after 30, 60, 90 days, depending, you get automatic flows that start talking about, okay, you bought this product or we bought these products. What about this one? Or what about that? Have you thought of, now we're going to have candles again back on our website. Have you thought about candles? So that definitely helps. But if you think for our specific business, if you think about how people purchase on the company on the website, they tend to buy 2 to 3 products, and there's no real correlation between what people buy. So we looked at this actually really really carefully. Um, this and we couldn't figure out a pattern in terms of what people bought. So obviously we have some bestsellers, but our bestseller is not 80% of our business. So our sales are pretty scattered across various products. So it's very hard to find pattern. People just like certain perfumes, and that's what the ones they're gonna buy. So trying to make a correlation between, okay, if you buy Ambre Saffron, automatically we know that you're gonna love this, and that's what we're gonna push. It's hard for us to do. But
Mm-hmm.
what's important for us and what's important for our customers is that discovery process. So the way we generate quite a bit of revenue and post purchase activity is by sending campaigns talking about various subjects. It could be, okay, we got this new perfume and we got this new perfume that came in stock. Pushing a story or just some educational content around perfume. It can be the simple email just talks about, okay, but these 3 floral products we think are great, or what should we wear for summer, etc. Just talking about those is really helpful because what people do is that first of all they get the products, they're going to try them, and oh by the way, they smell pretty nice and it's a good quality product. They're not going to wait till the bottles are empty to buy new products. So
Right.
they tend to buy again after 30 to 60 days. There's no way they finish 3 bottles. But they love the perfume, and they've always wanted to discover other products. So they are going to be inspired or encouraged or influenced by the communication we send around other products that are available for us. So we try to adapt our post purchase marketing or post purchase communication around that fact. It's a lot of discovery. There's not a specific timeline where, for example, if you, I don't know, if you buy soap, well, you know that after X amount of days or whatever it is, you probably run out, so you need to buy a new one. That's not how Dossier works, because there's this whole discovery process of purchasing other products. And by the way, when they repurchase, they buy another 2 to 3 products, not just one. And it's gonna be different perfumes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. I love the highlight on discoverability. And so I know because we were talking about UGC and like using videos as a platform. I'm curious, you share like part of that discoverability process is that getting those videos, that video content in front of consumers after they purchase. So like showing them being like, oh, these are a couple of like reviews, in the from TikTok or YouTube or anything like that. That you're sharing, or is it really just putting the product in front of them and like having like a blog or something of the sort? Like what does the
No,
format of that look like?
there's definitely that. I mean, we try all sorts of types of communication, and obviously review is a big part of it. That's why we're also pretty aggressive about getting those reviews. So in part of the flow is to send in, I think it's 2 or 3 emails, I think, or SMSs saying, please leave a review for us if you love our product. Because we can then use those reviews across paid advertising, even on our own website. You can push that to communicate, post-purchase communication, pre-purchase communication. Yes, so that the types of communication we go through is pretty wide. And first of all, there's no one format that fits all, and second of all, I think you need some variety of communication. If it's all about buy our products, that's probably not going to work. People are going to get bored of it.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a
But I
lot of
think
sense.
it's really staying front and center in terms of people reminding you. And then obviously there's a whole bunch of work we do around, okay, who should we be sending this communication to, how often? That's obviously crucial because you want to make sure people don't get bored of you and unsubscribe. That's not the point. So
Right.
that's the really difficult piece where you start thinking about how to segment your audience in a smart way, et cetera, et cetera. But that's always a work in progress.
Real quick, Mara, I imagine like you're testing lots of things and like trying to see what is driving. Where do you go to get inspired, or like who do you pay attention to, if anybody, or any like outlet or learning resource to like level up and stay?
So we have a list of, what is it, 100, 150 companies that we really like. And you always you can't think of everything in house. You always need some form of inspiration. So there's these brands that we love and we get inspiration from in terms of design. Oh, look at that cool feature. That's interesting. They build their filter that way. Didn't think of that. Cool. Let's try and see if that makes sense for us. Whether it's, color palettes or like you say, communication. How are these guys communicating? What kind of success have they seen with this type of email? So it's always an ongoing process of learning from others, whether they are specifically in the perfume industry or in adjacent type of industries like fashion or beauty industries. That's really the best source of inspiration for us, and listening to great podcasts, that's always super helpful. On my commute, that's all I do is I listen to podcasts, I listen to audiobooks, and that's how you get ideas. It's a lot of things that we do are not rocket science. It's just, again, it's all about, I think, doing the basic things right. And if you do those basic things right, you can go a long way. And obviously, it goes without saying, having great product. You can be the best marketer in the world. If your product's not good, you're not going to go very far. So it all starts with there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you think so? I love what you said about like just doing basic things right. Like it's not rocket science. And I know there's a lot of like this time of year around the holiday season, there's a lot of, I feel like, pressure or just stress in general. And so I think this fits in really nicely. And I wanted to ask you, do you have that same approach for the holidays where it's like we know we know what we're going to do. We know our basics. We're going to stick to that during the holiday season? Or do you think your strategy changes a little bit just depending on, consumer behavior?
I think at least at our stage of the company, again, it's a lot about getting the basics right.
Mm,
In any e-commerce, and especially in perfumery, you got to be doing a lot of volume during those crucial 6 weeks. You're probably going to be generating anywhere from, I don't know, 30 to 50% of your annual revenue in 6 weeks. So it's you could go and try and figure things out, but it might not be the most wise, the wisest strategy, because you don't want to get those 6 weeks wrong. That's
hmm
super important. So you want to get those things right. So at least my point of view, and I'm not saying it's the right way to do things, but in my point of view is, we stop testing, we stop trying new things. It's about getting volume, making sure we're communicating a lot. And I always say to the team, Black Friday is the period where branding goes to die. So it's all about making sure you get your voice heard and you get those sales. And so you sacrifice a little bit of that beauty and aesthetic to make sure that people understand your promotions and people see the value. And there's a lot of noise out there and during Black Friday. So it's all about attracting that attention, getting those sales. At the end of the day, we're a business. We need to sell. And when so much volume gets processed to, 4 to 8 weeks, you cannot get that wrong.
Yeah. And like when you think about that, like that period of time too, I know a lot of brands like they have this existential like struggle between we're going to get a lot of one-time customers that are leveraging the discount, but we're never going to see them again. And that like profitability margin profile looks very different for those customers. How do you think about that? Like, is that a period of time where you're trying to find those first time customers to drive them to second purchase? Like you're looking for the loyal customer base, or we know we're just going to see a lot of like one-time purchases. And so let's architect our pricing and our offers to make that
Right.
first purchase profitable.
So I think it's a bit of both. We have not seen that, cohorts, November cohorts, so people buy for the first time in the month of November, have been bad customers. That has not been our experience. Clearly, they take advantage of the discounts to buy way more. Goes without saying. But we see the same cohort building on November cohorts than on other types of cohorts. So that has not been our experience. Obviously, the other cohorts from the other months of the year, there's always a spike there, of course, they take advantage of the deals that we offer. But we haven't really seen a huge difference in performance if we compare the November cohort versus other ones. So that's not been our issue. It's all about managing the CAC and managing that process. But yeah.
Yeah, I love that you brought up that point, Yao. And it's very encouraging, I'm sure, Sergio, that you saw, like, you haven't seen that November has been like a really big uptick in consumers and that you're able to make like maybe first time customers into repeat purchasers. And this is a notion that I spoke with one of our partners with on another podcast episode. And the notion of like people buying gifts, right, during the holidays. And so like the customer and the consumer might be different. Like if you're buying, I'm buying something for my mother or something, you know, if the dossier emails are going to me, but my mom is the one who's enjoying it, it's like, how do you collect kind of both emails or SMS? And we were also talking about collecting those ways of communication. Like that's something that's super, I feel like niche and not a ton of people are capitalizing on. Have you like thought about that at all, Sergio? Of like, how do you get if if something is tagged as I'm buying as a gift, how do you close that communication gap of like, oh, how am I getting in communication with someone who's actually using the product? Or is that not really a worry in the perfume industry?
Oh no, it's a worry, but it's hard to do. So you can think of sending emails and how do you call that? But you send an email and then both people get a discount if you refer a friend. You can think of those things. You can think of, okay, have you thought about a friend who would like this? There's all sorts of ways of doing it. Unfortunately, we haven't seen a ton of success. It's hard.
Mm.
It's hard to really scale those things. Um, but again, I would love to hear ideas of other companies that have been doing that pretty successfully. The two things that encourage us is going back to the November point is yes, we do see repeat purchase even though you bought for the first time in November. I think that speaks to the quality of our product. But going back to how we can refer more and formalize that more, we see so we have a post-purchase survey, and we were surprised and very encouraged by the fact that about 25% of our purchases were referred by friends, which I
Oh,
thought was, to
it's a
say the
good
least,
chunk.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
encouraging. It could be obviously could be way more. We're growing very fast, so um, we're getting a lot of people to the door through traditional marketing methods. But that was a good thing. But formalizing that, I think, is an essential piece, and I have to say I have not come up with a great solution just yet that can be really scaled up. Have you seen the companies that do that well? I'm curious.
So we were I can ask honestly the partner that we were speaking with if they had a brand in mind of who they were addressing or seen it done well, but I just heard it more as like a notion, like this is something that in the future maybe people will work towards, but I haven't had any direct you know direct brands telling me directly like this has worked super well for us. Yeah, have
Mm.
you?
I'm trying to think.
I know I'm like I posed the question and I'm like I brands that come to
Yeah.
mind are tough.
Yeah, I know. So there's a brand called Flamingo Estate that they push this really hard. They're like a very well-designed brand, and like I think they rely a lot on word of mouth. And I think they do a good amount of this. I'll have to ask them to like, are there any specific tactics that they're using that seems to be more successful than others? But the classic, I know they're doing the classic, like refer a friend, both of you get a
Yeah.
discount on the purchase, or um, I'll have to think about that more. Yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
it's I mean it's a huge point. I mean it's something that's really important. I at least I haven't seen a solution that works really well beyond the good old fashioned word to mouth.
hmm We'll definitely have to follow up with you on that because I think it's a great question and maybe we found a pocket where it's like, oh, there's some investigation to see what other brands are doing in that space. But I know we're t coming up on time, so I want to be respectful, of course, of everyone's
Oh, no problem.
schedules.
I got time.
Oh no, you don't want to stay? Yeah. We could just talk for hours and
Well,
hours.
yeah. No, it's been a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I know Yao and I were both super pumped about this episode and getting to meet and chat with you. So thank you. This is what like we love to do, our bread and butter. So thanks.
Yes.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Sergio.